All right, welcome back, everyone. Happy 2:35. I know probably our folks are still going to be coming in here in a moment, so I'll just take a couple seconds and chit-chat here. I'm really excited to present our next speakers. We're going to be joined by Suzanne Teller of the Luckiamute Watershed Council, also Holly Purpura, yes, thank you, the Marys River Watershed Council, as well as Shannon Richardson of the South Santiam Watershed Council. And they're going to be speaking about one of my favorite titles here, Damn Good Neighbors, Fostering Social Harmony with Beavers in the Mid-Willamette.
All right, good afternoon. So first, I just want to take a second and recognize that we are in the very last session of the very last day, and you guys are hanging in till the bitter end, so thank you so much for being here. We included cute imagery on every slide with that in mind. And we're also going to really try and go lightly on the material that's been covered extensively in the past few days, which means I might zip through some slides. And if I zip through something that you're looking at, throw your hand up and we'll slow down and go back. So I'm here with two co-presenters and who were very kindly introduced by our moderator. Suzanne Teller is the outreach specialist for the Luckiamute Watershed Council. Sometimes I jokingly call it the Luckiamute, and I almost just did that. And Holly Purpura, the Executive Director for the Marys River Watershed Council, and I am the Executive Director for the South Santiam Watershed Council, and those are our pets. So we're just three members of a larger collective that's called the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership. And the MWBP was formed to address complex ecological and social questions in the Mid-Willamette Valley regarding beaver activity, beaver and human coexistence, and beaver inclusive restoration. So to orient you to where we work, I'll pull up a map and a couple of slides, but we work in the Willamette Basin. And the Willamette is the second largest tributary to the mighty Columbia River. And the Willamette flows from south to north through the communities of Eugene, Corvallis, Salem, and then Portland. The MWBP started with one goal in mind, and that goal is to improve watershed and cultural capacity for beaver and their beneficial behaviors. And to achieve that goal, we had a couple of strategies. Our strategies were first to better understand the way that community partners, landowners, land managers, and other potentially interested parties view beavers and their activities on the landscape, paired with identifying locations for beaver-inclusive restoration that would provide high ecological benefit and low social friction. So this talk is going to be focused on the outreach and engagement portion, but we also are going to throw in a little bit of the habitat stuff to give you kind of a full context of what the work is that we're doing. So to work on these first two strategies, we secured funds from the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board through a technical assistance grant to address strategy 2, that's the landscape level stuff, and then through an engagement grant, and that's to address some of the outreach and engagement work. And from there, we received sustaining funds from other state agencies besides OWEB, foundations, trusts, and private donors that have allowed us to deepen and continue our work. So we meet monthly. We have a rotating core team that currently Suzanne and I serve on. And that core team serves as a coordinating body for the larger network's work. We have a shared cloud-based workspace, and we've developed and codified methods for pursuing and sharing resources, including funding and staff, administrative burden, and we have working retreats at least annually. We also use a consent-based decision-making tool that's rooted in equity, and it's responsive to the ebb and flow of individual and organizational capacity. So as we move into some of the meatier slides, I want to share a change in language that we're working on. So we've been made aware by some of our regional partners that the word stakeholder can carry some pretty serious negative connotations. So we're seeking, sometimes imperfectly, to replace stakeholder with more descriptive terms and phrases like potential partner or interested party. So you hear a lot of that language today. One of MWBP's core competencies, though, is creating and sharing beaver gifts every Friday, and sometimes in between. So I talked about our combined service area in the Willamette Basin. So there's 5 watershed councils and then additional partners in the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership. And between the 5 watershed council service areas, we cover nearly 1/3 of the entire Willamette Basin. That's a lot of ground. That's over 6,000 miles of perennial stream and about 3,000 square miles. We all work across a mix of public and private lands. So we're getting into the slides that we've been talking extensively about over the last few days. This morning, we had a great visit and talk from Governor Paulus, and he reminded us that beavers are climate changers. We've called them nature's engineers. We've called them nature's firefighters. In Oregon, similar to other areas in the Pacific Northwest, beaver populations were reduced to near extirpation levels in the 1800s. And we know that that brings a lot of ecological detriment to the area. And as our colleague John Paul mentioned this morning, Oregon is the beaver state. Like the back of our state flag is a beaver. That's the back of our state flag up there. And so for the beaver state, we've got some work to do. But besides being engineers and firefighters, beavers are superheroes. We've talked about a lot of the benefits that they can bring to degraded watersheds and landscapes. But you don't have to take our word for it because we have science. And there's evidence that beaver activity can help flatten the hydrologic curve, which we know, particularly in flashy systems like the ones that many of us work in headwater streams particularly. And beavers' ponded habitats allow suspended sediments to fall out, resulting in cleaner water on the other side of beaver complexes. We saw this bottom graphic from Dr. Emily Fairfax on the first day, but because beaver activity helps slow water, keeping it on the land for longer, streams with beaver can have greater connectivity with groundwater. And that means that we can have a streamside environment where riparian plants are able to have their roots in the water for longer portions of the year, and that's a good thing. Finally, the slide is kind of near and dear, finally, because it's almost the end of my section. This slide is near and dear to my heart because my background is in fisheries. I started my career as a fisheries biologist, and now I kind of don't know what I am. But what I do know is that in the Pacific Northwest, beaver and salmon have had eons to co-evolve together. And so beaver have already taught salmon to jump, unlike our colleagues up in the Arctic who saw that their Arctic char, they can't do that yet. But we've had time to adjust. And in the Pacific Northwest, that coevolution means that beaver are one of the key puzzle pieces that are going to help salmon and steelhead populations recover. And this is maybe a little bit challenging to see, but everywhere you see a little beaver shape, those are kind of beaver ecosystem benefits. Everywhere you see a little fish shape, those are benefits that salmon recognize from beaver presence on the landscape. And the little boxes are landscape level benefits. And so the habitat that beaver dams create, for example, and the increased stream complexity that results from beaver activity provide benefits for salmon at nearly every life stage. And beaver dams are largely porous. We've talked about some ideas about salmon migration in areas where beavers are actively building. We also know that beaver dams are porous, and often adult migrating salmon can move through, under, around, or over them. We also know that greater connection between streams, their floodplains, and groundwater mean cooled water, which is critical for thermally sensitive salmon. And finally, large wood increases cover for salmonids, and also provides a food source and habitat for aquatic organisms, which are the kind of fundamental building blocks of a healthy stream. So before I hand this over to Holly, I just want to pause and note that science is great. It's important, it's critical, and it helps us make good decisions, ecologically speaking. But most conflicts or perceived conflicts, they aren't head issues, right? They're heart issues. And so we need science to make these sound ecological decisions, but we need human connection to make progress. All right.
right, shifting over, I am going to provide an overview of our technical assistance program. As part of the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership, we have been undertaking a multifaceted approach, recognizing that beavers do a lot of the same kind of restoration that we're working on at the Marys River Watershed Council in the region, adding large wood to systems, providing complexity, and they do it for free. And also a limitation of beaver being on the landscape is they can create conflict with infrastructure. So as part of the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership, we have been taking this multifaceted approach to understanding both the areas of opportunity in our region for beaver-based restoration, as well as understanding the limitations of beaver being on the landscape and concerns that interested individuals and partners have about beavers being present. And as I'm providing an overview of our data collection, one tool that we've been using as part of our technical assistance program has been the BRAT model, the Beaver Restoration Assessment Tool. This tool was developed by researchers out of Utah State University, originally developed in the high mountain west, so in the state of Utah. And we have been working with researchers to adapt this tool to the Mid-Willamette region, the Coast Range and the Cascade Range of the Willamette River in Oregon. And the BRAT tool is, it factors in digital elevation models, hydrologic data, as well as land fire vegetation cover data sets to analyze and help to predict the areas with the highest likelihood of beaver dams existing and lasting year after year. And so within that, it's analyzing both ecological conditions where beaver dams can persist, as well as potential human-beaver conflict, areas where infrastructure may prevent beaver dams from being there. And one benefit of using BRAT is you can analyze areas of opportunity across a wide region using remote sensing. And so this tool is helping us to provide, it's helping us to get a high-level overview, painting a broad picture of areas where beaver dams may, areas where beaver-based restoration focusing on promoting beaver dam building could happen in our watersheds. And within this model, this is an early iteration of BRAT before we began our ground truthing. And in this, it's a bit hard to see, but the areas that are red are indicating areas with a high likelihood of beaver dams not being able to persist. And that might be because of too steep of stream gradient. It could be because of the high potential for infrastructure conflict. It could also be other hydrologic conditions that may prevent beaver dams from lasting year after year. And over this, since this draft was created, we've been undergoing ground truthing because the data sets that BRAT's taking into account, it paints a broad picture of a region. And for instance, the land fire data set, it provides each pixel is about a 30 square meter bit of data. So about 100 square meters of saying this is the vegetation in 100 square meters. Well, if you picture the amount of biodiversity that can be in 100 square meters, it provides an overview, but it's essential within this model to get on the ground and see what the conditions are saying. And so as part of the ground truthing, we've been doing field validation, working with, being led by Jean-Paul Zagarola with Bonneville Environmental Foundation, as well as students and interns from the Oregon State University New Beginnings for Tribal Students program. And as part of this, we have done 144 surveys, walking in each survey 300-meter stretches. And this has worked out to be around 27 miles, so over a marathon of walking streams in the Mid-Willamette across the whole region to see if the conditions on the ground are matching what the model is saying. So the kinds of things we're looking for are stream gradient, vegetation in the area, if beavers are present or absent, if signs of beaver are present and absent, as well as if there are dams there. And over the course of these surveys, we've been working on both public and private lands with a multitude of landowners as part of it. And it has helped us to be able to refine that original model back here, which we just 2 days before the conference got the latest draft of it. So we didn't get to incorporate it in the slide. But anybody interested in seeing it, feel free to reach out to us after. Our contact information is both in the Whova app and then as well as at the end of the slideshow. And yeah, it's over the course of the technical assistance, we've been able to get a feel for how and where to prioritize areas that could be opportune for beaver-based restoration. And helping to inform this is our engagement initiative as well, which I will pass over to Suzanne.
Make sure my water is present. Okay. All right, clicker. All right. There we go. So we all know beavers are crucial for building and maintaining healthy, biodiverse ecosystems. But to truly succeed in making them a part of our restoration efforts, we need the support of the people who are living and working here, and who would be directly impacted by having more beavers on the landscape. That means understanding how folks in the Mid-Willamette Valley are interacting with beavers now and listening to their experiences and concerns about these cute, but sometimes a little pesky ecosystem engineers. Now, let me click over here. There we go. So, this is the part we identified early on as not only one of the most complex, but also where we had the least experience, making it a key focus of our community engagement efforts. So to achieve our goal of identifying the best locations ecologically and sociologically for beaver-based restoration, we knew we would need to do three things. We knew we would need to learn about the priorities, the concerns, the knowledge, and the experiences of those directly interacting with beavers. We also knew that we would need to hire experts to design and coordinate community focus groups, interviews, and surveys. We're not social scientists. And finally, we knew we needed to work with these experts to develop a working strategy to promote the broad acceptance and adoption of beaver coexistence techniques. So this is where a bit of serendipity came into the process. Right around the time that our initial OWEB, the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board grant funding came through, I was introduced to community-based social marketing. Has anyone here heard of CBSM or used it before? Got one, two, okay, perfect. That's great, because I'm going to talk a lot about, or as much as I can, about CBSM. I won't call myself an expert, but so CBSM uses a social science research method for influencing positive behavior change. It was developed around 30 years ago by a man named Doug Mackenzie Moore. And the approach is based on the idea that, you know, simply sharing information isn't enough to change behaviors. You know, think about all of those things that we know about how to be eco-conscious, things that we know we should be doing. And when I say we, I mean much more broadly. I'm not pointing fingers, or even at myself. I don't want to do that, because I know I do this too. I know information about plastic, microplastics, all of these things. We know this. But to actually change our behaviors and start doing things differently, it takes a different approach. So CBSM dives into the social science principles to figure out what are those barriers. What is preventing people from adopting new habits? Or for those of you that attended yesterday's Revitalizing Riverscapes, I think it was yesterday, the days are blending together, that talk, it's about bridging that gap. Okay, and what I really like about this approach is the emphasis on direct community engagement. By tapping into existing social networks, CBSM helps promote the behaviors we hope to see in a way that feels relatable and supportive. It's all about creating a positive environment where people feel empowered and encouraged to make that change or take that action. So this is great and all, but we're not social scientists, as I said, or we're not behavior change experts. So why risk trying this brand new to us approach for promoting beaver coexistence and beaver-based restoration in the Mid-Willamette Valley? Well, for one, we already knew that there are complex feelings about beavers, and we couldn't just drive forward with our pro-beaver, happy, cute beaver message. With CBSM, we had to find a roadmap towards a successful outcome, one that recognized there would need to be some careful route planning and pit stops along the way before we reached our destination. We needed to dive deep into the community's experiences and sentiments regarding beavers. It was important for us to understand what people have gone through when interacting with these animals and how they really feel about them. We also needed to find out what folks already know and what they might not know about non-lethal coexistence techniques. Identifying the barriers people have faced in implementing these techniques was crucial for us, and as was exploring what benefits people would get out of implementing and having beavers on the landscape. Finally, we wanted to discover who those trusted messengers were. Who are the folks that people wanted and believed to get information from about beaver techniques, beaver information. That way we could effectively partner and share information and encourage that positive behavior change. So, speaking of taking new approaches and seeing things in a different light, our group has evolved in other ways. We have always used a lot of GIFs, as Shannon had said, in our partnership communications, but now we've embraced AI as well in our communications and intergroup communications, I'll say. Let me just say that these results can be really fun, but don't look too closely. It's a little bit unsettling, some of these images as well. So now I'm going to go through some of those specific actions that we took to engage landowners and land managers through our CBSM approach. We used several different methods to gather input, and these included interviews, focus groups, and a mail-out survey. 5 representatives of the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership even participated in a master's training session with Doug Mackenzie Moore, the founder of CBSM, to get a deeper understanding of those principles at the get-go. Through a recommendation from Doug, we contracted with a firm called Action Research. They're a social research firm that really specializes in CBSM. If you're interested, I can give you that information, that contact information afterwards, so come to me if you're interested. They were really invaluable in helping us design, conduct, and evaluate the results from all of these different information gathering methods that you see listed here. To kick things off, we started with a behavior impact survey in August 2021. This involved a group of 10 beaver experts, and this just helped us pinpoint the key behaviors we wanted to promote, while also identifying what are the main interest groups we needed to be in touch with for a barrier and benefit research. These behaviors that we wanted to pinpoint included the types of actions and techniques that would help prevent beaver conflict in our area, or be an alternative to removing or trapping out nuisance beaver. And these things include what we've been hearing about: pond levelers, culvert fences, sand paint on trees, strategic planting, and several others. So then from February 2022 to March 2023, together with Action Research, we began an in-depth, year-long information gathering campaign, starting with interviewing representatives from key sectors like industrial timber, large-scale agriculture, county public works, irrigation districts. We also hosted a couple of focus groups, one with folks who are already coexisting with beavers and another with those who are trapping beaver using lethal trapping methods. That summer, we sent out a 4-page survey to a random sample of about 1,600 landowners and land managers living within 100 meters of a stream or waterway. And after that survey, based on all the insights we received from the methods so far, we organized 2 additional targeted focus groups, one with just county public works officials, representatives, and another with agricultural producers. So our in-depth interviews. I'm going to explain how we proceeded with each of these methods. I'm going to go through them one by one and give a brief overview of the insights we got from each of those methods. So starting with the in early 2022, we conducted in-depth interviews with 13 representatives from industrial timber, large agricultural producers, county public works, and irrigation districts. Action Research led these interviews to help us not influence. You know, they were a neutral party in this, so they were able to conduct them for us. But we, the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership, worked with them to develop the questions to ask and the procedures. And through these interviews, we were looking to get a better understanding of how these different groups encounter beavers, how they prevent problems currently, and how they handle beaver-related issues. Each interview lasted around 20 to 30 minutes and covered topics such as beaver encounters, beaver issues that they're experiencing, strategies they use to prevent conflict, as well as responses to conflicts when they arose, and barriers, their perceived barriers to coexistence, and additionally where they prefer to get their information. During these interviews, we came across the first of quite a few instances of an assumption we had that was challenged and caused us to totally rethink some of our messaging. Many of our interview participants claimed to use prevention and coexistence techniques. Oh yeah, we use prevention, we use coexistence techniques already. But we actually learned that there was a clear difference between how we and how they define those terms. Most participants who said they were preventing beaver issues were actually responding to them. For example, by removing dams that were built or trapping out the beaver. Over half reported using trapping as a last resort, but it took some time for them to mention it during the interviews, which indicated that they, the participants of the interviews saw trapping as something they'd like to avoid if possible, and that they would only resort to when necessary to prevent property damage. So the key barriers of utilizing these techniques for our interview participants included time, cost, and a lack of confidence that those methods would work. And I'd like to note that although some of these participants do currently trap or remove dams, they all express genuine appreciation for beavers and their positive impact on the ecosystem. They knew this information. So our focus groups. In April of that same year, we conducted 2 90-minute Zoom focus groups, again through Action Research, with rural residents in the Mid-Willamette Valley to explore their perceptions of and experience with beavers, identify their barriers and benefits for beaver coexistence. All participants were screened so that we knew that they either owned or managed property near streams in the Mid-Willamette Valley and that they did actually have experience with beaver. Participants were placed in one of 2 focus groups. One group consisted of folks who are already utilizing coexistence methods or who leave beavers alone and just let them do their thing. And the other group included those who currently trap beavers in response to activity. During the sessions, participants were asked about some of the similar things: type and frequency of beaver encounters, what prevention methods they use, responses to conflicts, barriers to coexistence, and their motivations for coexisting, as well as those trusted information sources. The conversations that happened during these focus groups provided really valuable insights into the barriers and benefits that they were experiencing. And it also did help guide the development of our male survey, which I'll get to in a moment. So again, both groups shared appreciation and strong motivations for coexistence, but there were clear differences between the two. The non-trapping group spoke very confidently about their reasons for coexisting with beavers and seemed very comfortable with either, well, let's just leave them alone, let them do their thing, or using prevention methods like, we got this, we know what to do. On the other hand, the trapping group expressed more conditional appreciation for beavers, such as, oh, we will coexist with beavers, sure, as long as the beavers don't cause any issues, we're fine. Yeah. So the non-trapping group reported low barriers, as I said, and didn't mind putting in the effort to implement those prevention measures. Meanwhile, the trapping group faced more obstacles: limited time, limited money to implement these measures, and lack of knowledge about what's out there. Some members said they would never heard of things like pond levelers and culvert fencing. And all of this group said they would be interested in learning more about ways to coexist with beaver, and that they would appreciate what was called, and you'll hear this continuously, a one-stop shop for resources on different methods that they could use to prevent and resolve beaver-related conflicts in their area. The male survey. So Action Research took these insights gained from the interviews and the focus groups, and that helped them develop a survey, a 4-page survey, that would allow us to better understand how folks in the region more broadly encounter and respond to beavers. This survey gathered more information than the other two methods, including how residents use their land, their concerns about potential threats to their land, and their experiences with beaver activity over the past few years. And again, the questions were designed to help us understand all of those things that I had mentioned before: knowledge of coexistence, barriers, and as well as attitudes towards living with beavers on the land. Out of the 1,600 surveys sent, we received 402 completed surveys back, which at 25%, if any of you have done any kind of survey like this, especially 4 pages long, that's pretty remarkable. We were really happy with that, and Action Research was happy with that too. And this was made possible, again, by that guidance and the strategies that they taught us, Action Research. And this involved sending a round of pre-survey postcards before the survey to get people ready. Hey, survey's coming. Then the 1,600 surveys. Then a reminder postcard. Hey, remember that survey we sent you? And then a follow-up to anyone who didn't respond with another round of lots of hundreds of surveys. So, as you can imagine, this involved many, many, many hours of staff and volunteer time, hand address, stamp and stuff all those envelopes. We were told hand addressing is better for returns, so that's what we did. And why are we looking so happy? Well, not only did it give us a chance to be all together, and we're a really fun group, we also had this really motivational ringleader to cheer us along. Ignore the tail, that's an AI thing. So, takeaways. For the question about the level of concern people had for different threats to their property, the top things that came up: wildfire, water shortage, drought, and invasive species. Those ranked highest. Beaver-related damage was much of a lower concern, and in fact rated lowest among all the listed concerns. Among those who experienced tree damage, which was, by the way, more common than flooding damage, most reported that they were already using non-lethal methods or doing nothing because, the issue wasn't largely seen as significant enough to act on. Only 13% reported using lethal trapping, with another 2% reporting relocation as a response. For those who do trap and remove beavers, the main barriers to coexistence were, once again, time, money, and doubts about effectiveness of those methods. Another result that matched what we had been hearing in the interviews and focus groups was that most residents preferred accessing a one-stop shop, a one-stop website for beaver advice, though we also discovered that mailed information and printed brochures were preferred over email and other electronic forms of communication. That was a shock to me. People like mail. Finally, most survey respondents felt that when it came to information about beaver-related issues, the most trustworthy sources were agencies like U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Oregon State University Extension Service. Those were where they went to for reliable information. See that fun fact? Oregon State University's mascot, Benny the Beaver. Go Beavs. Oh, beavers provide duck habitat. We can live with that. Oh, okay, where are we at? Oh, yeah. Targeted focus groups. In February and March of 2023, based on the feedback from all of these earlier engagements, we decided that we needed to hold 2 more focus groups. These were targeted to groups we needed more information about. The first was with county public works representatives to discuss their experiences with beaver-related conflicts specifically. And for this group, we brought together representatives from public works agencies in the 4 counties that make up most of our service area, and that's Polk County, Benton, Marion, and Lynn. For this group, we wanted to better understand how they encounter beavers, tackle those issues when they arise, what kinds of prevention, coexistence measures they're using. The goal was also to share the current practices that different counties use to coexist with beavers and minimize conflicts. What we learned during this focus group was that there's not only a universal need, once again, for more money and more capacity for county staff, but that there is also a need for education and training to understand those regulations that are, you know, sometimes very complex to navigate around responding to beaver issues. And who do we contact when conflicts do arise? Who are the experts? There's also a shared desire among the county representatives for a communication network to be able to share information when beaver issues do arise. There's one county in particular, Benton County, that has a more robust system for responding to beaver issues with non-lethal coexistence methods. Thanks to allocated funding, Benton County can respond to beavers themselves, as well as provide grants to landowners dealing with problem wildlife, including beavers, through their what's called their Agriculture and Wildlife Protection Program. And if you want to know more about that, I'm going to put you on the spot, Holly. Okay, great. Our second targeted focus group was with landowners who derived income from their property through agricultural activities. With this group, we specifically wanted to explore their thoughts about messaging around beavers. What communication strategies about beaver coexistence would work best for them? And the insights we gathered, once again, is going to be invaluable when we're ready to, you know, shape and create future outreach materials and messages that are more effective in reaching the agricultural community and encouraging coexistence on working lands. For example, we learned that there's actually, among this group, there is a need for a targeted information-based campaign because of some pervasive myths about beavers that are still out there and a lack of awareness of beaver benefits. Just to illustrate this point, there were 4 statements that were tested because we had thought maybe these are some potential messages we can put out there to encourage folks to, you know, look into beaver coexistence methods. All 4 of these that I'm about to state were disputed as myth or, nah, that's overstated, that's not true. And they are, beavers can maintain a balanced ecosystem. Stated as, no, that's not true. Beavers help increase the resilience of the surrounding land to wildfire damage. Also in the focus group, nope, that's not true. Beavers are key players in building biodiversity. Yeah, that's overstated. Not the case. Beaver dams and their ponds act as filters, providing cleaner water downstream. Nope, not true. Yeah, so that's the feedback that we got. All our messaging, it's going to have to change. So we also learned that public displays of commitment, which is a method that is popularly used by community-based social marketing campaigns, and it's used because, community acceptance often comes from seeing your neighbors do something, or, seeing a sign like, oh, hey, Joe down the street likes beavers, so I should too, But among all our agricultural focus group participants, there was a general consensus that since beavers are generally considered pests by farmers, broadcasting that they coexist with beavers and allow them to live on the property could be viewed as irresponsible. And farmers didn't want to be blamed. Even if they were supportive of beavers, they didn't want to be blamed if there was any serious beaver damage in the area. So I'm going to go over some of the key highlights and important findings here. Number one, general appreciation for beavers exists among all interest groups. That includes those who currently utilize lethal trapping and dam removal techniques. Number two, top barriers to coexistence, pretty much universally mentioned: time, money, and knowledge about different techniques and what's available. Number three, wildfire and drought are the top concerns among a list of issues potentially impacting properties. Since beavers can help, as we've heard all through the conference, they can help store and keep water on the landscape and support fire resilience. Emphasizing these environmental benefits could help some of our interest groups connect beaver coexistence with preventing those larger threats that they care about. Number four, language matters. We learned early on in this process that we needed to be clear about what we mean when we use terms like coexistence. For some community partners, coexisting with beavers meant not proactively trapping and removing them until they became a problem. That's not what we mean by coexistence, so we need to be clear about that. And I'll add, for those who are already using non-lethal methods or doing nothing about beavers because they don't see that it's a problem, we saw an opportunity to focus outreach too on this group. These residents might not view the damage as severe enough yet, but encouraging, if we start encouraging beavers and adding them to the landscape, there might be more beavers on the landscape. So encouraging preventative measures could prevent issues from escalating to a point where trapping becomes necessary all of a sudden. So we also learned, number five, I'm on number five, yep. We also learned that there are some pervasive myths about beaver out there and skepticism about beaver benefits that we, Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership, had taken for granted. We considered them, everybody knows beavers bring biodiversity, right? Another thing that we learned and need to promote an information-based campaign about. So we need to find the champions. That's number 6. Many of our industrial timber and agriculture representatives viewed coexistence measures as ineffective. This points to the need to develop successful pilot projects to showcase to other producers and timber growers, particularly with our ag community. Local evidence-based information is a very effective way to point out exactly how coexistence methods work and spread awareness that they can be an effective way to live with beaver and take advantage of those benefits that they provide. At the same time, we recognize that many ag producers may not be interested in public displays of commitment due to those concerns about privacy and good relationships with their neighbors. So meaning that initially, our outreach efforts among this group may have to be more private, done with an understanding that developing trust and good relationships is a process that takes time. It's not overnight. So among, number 7, among survey respondents and focus group participants, there was a stated preference for a one-stop shop resource that provides detailed information on coexistence techniques, including the cost, the maintenance needs, and links to folks who can help implement those techniques. There is a website there. I will talk more about this and give you some good news in the next slide. First, I'm going to go to number 8. Finally, we learned that the most trusted sources of information for beaver-related issues across all of our interest groups were Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and Oregon State University Extension. But for the ag producer group in particular, their top trusted source of information were other members of their of the agricultural community, fellow farmers, and included the Farm Bureau as well. This information gives us more guidance about who should we partner with when we're ready to launch a beaver coexistence outreach program among all these different kinds of land managers. Oh yeah, the small print. In case you didn't see it at the bottom there, here's a special message from our in-house expert. Just a quick reminder that while our findings are based on extensive research, lots of interactions with members of our community or communities in the Mid-Willamette Valley, repeating methods in your area may have different results. Thank you, Dr. Beaver. Okay, next steps. So as Holly mentioned, the first draft of our BRAT results will be ready for us to view next week. So excited. And the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership Group will be reviewing them with our Utah State University partners during an in-person retreat next week. That's exciting. Then our website launch and postcard campaign. So we've been working with Nimble Web Design, a local web design company in our area, to complete our one-stop shop website. And we're excited to say that we have just done a soft launch of that site last week. Being in that soft launch phase at the moment, we're not yet publicly announcing the presence of our website, but we're in the process of sharing it with some key folks that can help provide feedback and suggestions for improvement. If you are interested in reviewing this site and giving your own feedback, you're welcome to do that if you noted the link in the previous slide, or we have a QR code up here that you can come up and scan, and we'd welcome your feedback. Once we've incorporated all of those suggestions and thoughts for improvement, we'll officially launch that website for everyone to access. After the public launch, we'll then kick off a AB postcard campaign, meaning that we're going to send out postcards, different versions of postcards to landholders with different messaging, and see which messaging brings more hits to our website, more clicks, more activity. That'll help us also know what is helpful for folks, what spurs their interest. And then, again, in the future, we're going to be doing some training. We recently got funding for coexistence and beaver-based restoration training for Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership members through the Beaver Corps program, so we're super excited about that. We'll be able to add to the very short list of trained coexistence practitioners in our area. We're also going to have some future planned outreach and education events, such as knowledge sharing tours, and these would be targeted to specific groups like city and county public works departments visiting a site in Benton County in Corvallis that has a thriving beaver dam complex in the midst of a city park. And so that'll be an opportunity to learn peer-to-peer learning. Also to agricultural producers, we do have some folks in our area that would be willing and have expressed a willingness to host tours on their property who are currently living with beaver on working lands. So that'll be an exciting opportunity for peer-to-peer learning among ag producers. And finally, future pilot projects. So looking further ahead, we're planning a pilot project phase of our partnership during which trained MWBP members will collaborate with willing landowners on beaver projects that have been identified through our engagement and habitat assessment work. These pilot projects will help us refine our techniques, both in the methods we use and how we communicate all those the methods and the results to the public and the surrounding community. Additionally, they will allow us to build an inventory of successful pilot projects to feature on our website. And finally, even further ahead, we'll be looking towards completing and implementing the beaver restoration plans within each of our basins and moving towards realizing our vision of balanced and mutually beneficial human-beaver coexistence in the Mid-Willamette Valley. Oh, whoops. All right, I went back. There we go. Oh, I don't know what happened. That's what happened. Do we have time? Yeah, so the question was about incentives for participating in the focus groups and the surveys. So with the focus groups in particular, we did offer gift cards for participating. The interviews were done with folks we have among our group who we had relationships with, established relationships, and who were willing to do a longer version interview. But yes, the focus groups were oftentimes with people we'd never interacted before, and to encourage participation, we did offer incentives. I don't remember the gift card. Yeah, it was like 25 or 30 bucks. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, with the surveys, no. That's, again, amazing that we got 25% return on that. Oh, yep, question. Great question. So age range among, because we didn't actually do the demographic questions for the focus group. I don't know specifically, but I will say that the response to our mail-out survey, it tended toward the older side. So I'd have to go back and look at the range, but I want to say off the top of my head, like 40 to 60 age range. And yes, it did skew, definitely skewed male for the focus group I'm talking about. And I'm trying to think of your second question. So what's the second part? We did. And what the response to that question was, well, what would be some good messaging? The advice was to state the facts, state how it benefits farmers, like specifically. You know, don't stick to the flowery language. Like, you know, we had some catchphrases like, oh gosh, I can't remember. There were some really cutesy ones, you know, and the advice from the ag community was just stick to the facts. Tell us how to mitigate problems on the land. Tell us, you know, where this can provide an economic benefit for us and our, you know, in our working lands. And that includes the concerns about drought and particularly with the ag group, the drought, but also the wildfire aspects. Yeah, it's hard to come up with synonyms for coexistence. Like, some of it sounds, you know, a little bit too off-putting, like, you know, living alongside beavers, you know, things like that. So what we do is just explain it more. Like, don't just assume that when you're talking, oh yeah, this is how we want to promote coexistence with beavers. Don't just use that word. Make sure you explain it. Make sure you are on the same page with how you're thinking about coexistence. So throughout that website, we make sure to do that, and also the way we communicate.
I just wanted to add that with some of the folks that I work with in my basin, particularly with private timber, one of the ways that I get at trying to use different language is to ask them what their goals are. And then once I know what their goals are, that helps me understand kind of what language I can use to talk about the solutions we have to offer that can address their stated needs.
Yes. Yeah, so just having received and compiled and having been waiting for the BRAT results, we have not yet launched our full-on outreach and education campaign and kind of what we call phase 2, but the plans are to really reach out, partner with, bring representatives from these trusted agencies or consult with them on how we can work with them to reach the folks that the folks that consider those agencies and those departments to be the most reliable sources of information.
And in addition to that is we recently received funding across the Mid-Willamette region to implement a program that we're calling Plan for Your Land that's helping to empower landowners to restore their own property by providing resources, education, a series around ways that they can help improve the land that they own or that they rent, lease. And as part of this program, into the years ahead, we just received funding this month, so still also very new.
It's called Plan for Your Land.
Yes. Plan for Your Land. Yeah, and as part of this program, we'll be working across the 5 basins that are within the Mid-Willamette Beaver Partnership region, and also throughout a separate network too called the Mid-Valley River Connections Network. And we'll be working with around 20 to 30 landowners per basin per year, so around 100 people a year that we'll be working with in a group, and then potentially also having site visits where we're going out to properties for landowners that are interested in participating in that, and then providing them with resources and information of how they can restore their land, not only beaver-based restoration, but also including beaver-based restoration.
And this plan is an expansion of a program that the South Santiam did with the North Santiam for about 3 years. And so the kind of beta version of the series, we did it in 2020 during COVID, and so actually it was 2021, and so all of the sessions were recorded, and all of those sessions are available on our website, sswc.org. In the document library. So if you're curious about that Plan for Your Land series, you can get kind of a preview there on our website.
Yeah, and that did get broken down a little bit in the full survey results. So I have those, and I'm happy to break that down for you. But I will say that, but I will say that it did include maintenance time, time to install, time to apply and get permits, and research into that. So yeah, it ran the whole gamut. Yeah. You asked about the focus groups? Yeah. That was actually quite difficult. We tried at first to just reach out through our regular networks, being watershed councils. We have mailing lists and, and all this. We didn't really get we didn't get enough folks register that way. So Action Research recommended a Facebook, like what do you call it? Like a paid ad. Yeah, basically there's a paid ad. Hey, we want to hear your input. Are you a farmer? Are you a rancher living in this area? And they taught us how to set that up because I've never done that before. But yeah, through that process, we were able to get enough hits. And, they also had to pass a series of questions to make sure that they fit within the criteria that we were needing for the focus groups. Having had experience with beavers, living by a stream. Were they currently, coexisting, or were they lethally trapping? They had to get through a range of questions in order to qualify as well. I think that wraps it up. Thank you all for attending.